Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds, and welcome to my live stream. Actually, welcome to my book garden basement place. I'm Rosebud Reads, and I'm super excited that you're here. Especially since today's the last live stream before we move on to book 4, our last book for The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. I believe this is session either 6 or 7. I think it's 6. Hang on. Let me check real quick. I think it's number 6. We're just gonna say 6. Hello, Momars Rover. How are you doing today? I hope you had a good weekend. And good first 2 days of the week. It's already Tuesday, almost Wednesday. It is safety week for me. So we got to do fire drill today, which wasn't too bad, but tomorrow is shelter in place. Then we have tornado and bus drills. So that's going to be so much fun. Hi, Chi-Chi Kiki. How are you doing? Hopefully good, and I hope you had a good weekend as well. Got tomorrow off, so you're going to go buy books with your friends. That sounds amazing. You'll have to tell us what books you bought on Thursday. Love to hear it. But that sounds like such a nice time. I love doing that. It is so much fun. And I'm glad you're doing good, Chi-Chi Kiki. So yes. Oh, hi, Annika. Welcome. And Cookielicious. I hope both of you are doing well. Welcome to the last live stream of book 3. And then we get to start the last book on Thursday. But yeah, I didn't actually do anything crazy this weekend. I cleaned, I reorganized a closet, and like my house. I did bathrooms, grocery shopping. So it was a nice weekend just to reset, which we all need, because I remember the weekend before was just like, it was good, but it was crazy. So it was nice to have a weekend where I could just get myself back together. You did none of that. That's also okay. Some weekends I literally just like I do the bathrooms because like that's something I have to do each weekend. But other than that, like it's just like nothing's going to get done. Planning to get a manga box set you've been wanting, and maybe the Apothecary Diaries light novels. Nice. I think I have the first 3 of the light novels. I need to sit down and read them. I actually read them before they started doing the manga. And then there wasn't a lot published yet for that. So it was a long time ago. This is like hard translations. So I need to go back and reread it when it's nicely translated into English. No, what manga? I'm just curious. You don't have to say. But I always love a good manga. But yeah, we have increased our member number to 96, so we are creeping closer to that cosplay live stream. Currently, Wei Wuxian is winning by 1 vote, but Hua Chang and Shen Qingchu are neck and neck right now. So, if anyone has not voted and they want to vote, you have to scroll down a bit in the posts, but it's there if you are new and want to vote. Otherwise, like, I am pretty happy playing Burial Mound's Yiling Patriarch. Doing that in character. He's pretty fun to do. But yes. Fic Rex. I'm going to do this real quick. So our two recommendations, one Scum Villain, one MXTX. So the Scum Villain recommendation I picked for today is The Original Goods Does Some Original Good by Pancakes with No Clean Frying Pans. And it's a bit more serious of an ongoing fic with a very interesting look and exploration of the Peak Lords and kind of what could have been if there was less assumptions and a little more communication. Oh, Toilet Bound Hanako-kun. I haven't read that one. I've seen it around. It's been kind of like in the like sphere of I'll get to it eventually, but like there's a lot else in front of it. You'll have to tell me how it is because I've never read it before. Okay, but here's the actual summary. After saving Liu Qingga's life using a demonic cultivation technique in the Lingxi caves, Shen Qingchu comes to the begrudging conclusion that maybe, just maybe, he doesn't want his martial siblings to actually die, and that acting like he does might in fact be highly counterproductive. But with his martial siblings now sniffing around his past, something stirring in the demon realm, and his key threatening to deviate out from underneath him, can he survive long enough to fix the problems he's made and protect that which he cares about? So, it's a lot darker than the manga, or in the manga. Okay. Started the Xiaohui story. Working title is I'll Make a Man Out of You. Oh, that's funny. That's great. I'm gonna save that. Hang on, post it. I'll make a man out of you. Thank you, Truffle. Also, welcome. Oh, I missed your hello. That's okay. I'll keep it on the list. Okay. And the MDZS, you were gone last week. That's okay. Let me do the MDZS recommendation, and then we will do kind of what happened last week. So the MDZS recommendation, it starts off actually with a different perspective of Yuzuan. And it's called All Will Be Well in the End by ABC CEE. And if you couldn't tell, I enjoy my what if stories. So here's another one, and it's complete. I was feeling very witty when I said it's complete too. What a treat, because I'm a dork. But yeah, it starts off from Yuzuan's perspective. Oh, you're being kidnapped by pirates on Tuesday? Next Tuesday. Well, that sounds great. Are you going anywhere fun or just being kidnapped? Because there's a difference. But yeah, so the author does clarify it is not all in Yuzuan's perspective, just the beginning, but it's still interesting. Pirate themed band. That's amazing. I remember how much fun band was. The community page is now live if you want to share pictures, but do not feel obligated to. But that sounds amazing. I activated the community page yesterday, I think. So anything you want to share, you can share there. I think you can only do that on your phone, though. I'm still figuring out how that works, but it's there. This is for anybody. If you have something exciting you want to share or post, or if you have a cosplay you want to share, I'd love to see it. Just let me know it's there and I'll look. May you rattle the tin cup? Of course. Go for it. One thing I thought I'd start maybe for next week, while you rattle the tin cup, is if you all have like fic tropes or like certain kinds of fics that you would like me to recommend. Oh, I'm glad it's making work easier to get through, or whatever you're working on easier to get through. I'm glad. Yeah, if you have certain fic types or a certain tag that you would like to see a story about, I literally have thousands in my bookmarks. So I am sure that I could find one of that type that is a favorite for your suggestion. But yes, the summary. So, she learned that there is a brat named Wei Ying who brought destruction to her and her family's life. And so, in her present, she vows that she will never allow that to happen. In which Yu Xian found the 4-year-old Wei Ying newly pushed out of the inn where his parents left him, decided that no, this child must never be associated with her, her family, and their sect at all. And so Yu Ziyuan thought that she could bring him somewhere where someone may or may not find him, but definitely far from where her husband could find him. If he's lucky, he'll survive that winter. If he's not, then death awaits the fevered child. This is the extent of mercy that Yu Ziyuan could give a child. With this, she'll raise her children without having to deal with a brat that brings trouble where he goes, according to her visions of her alternative life. Like the tag stated, this is definitely not Yu Ziyuan centric. Okay, the Los Angeles Guinea Pig Rescues Fall Raffle is on Saturday, so if you want tickets and to support the guinea pigs, that'd be great. Also, please consider donating to Bunnies on Board. Those both sound amazing, and I will write those down because I just got paid, so I can actually donate to that. So I will do that. So I feel like I speak. Oh, nice. And I'm guessing the Bunnies on Board is the same sort of situation. I shall put it right here so I can see. Then I will not forget. Just like that. But yeah, so those are both interesting ones, and any sort of story recs you want to see, it could even be tags like I want an angsty story, or I would like a short one shot that's fluffy. Oh, that's so cute. Okay. But yes. So it can be now, it can be in a comment. Because I pretty regularly check and see if people leave comments. It could even be on the video. But anyway, as you can tell, I'm pretty chill about it, and I like feedback. This is why I love chatting like this with all of you. It's really fun for me. It makes it a really good time. Because I mean, I love these books, but it's really great to do it with other people like this. Okay. So it is just under 15 minutes. So it will be 15 minutes when I actually get the book open and start. So this is where we shall begin. I actually have my book in front of me already, so I'm going to make it to the 15 minutes. Okay, So, previous to chapter 108, where we're starting, which is fishy education, we had Prince Jing and Li Yu visiting the Empress's palace, along with the babies, to kind of visit the Empress. Her House First by Sherry Priest. It was amazing. Okay. I'll have to look into that one too. It was Her House First by Sherry Priest. So they found a cloth tiger, and the babies ended up fighting over it, and it ripped, and they realized Tianxi, so Prince Jing, it was Tianxi's, and inside of it, they got a clue about who the nursemaid might have been. Like the person that made the cloth tiger, who Liu was trying to find out, because one of the memories that he earned, the secrets that he earned, was about a woman who was making this tiger, who looked like a nursemaid of Prince Jing. So he's been kind of hunting for this. Even previous to that, though, we had the Sixth Prince kind of plotting, because he's now he's pretty bitter that the Emperor really likes and is preferential to Prince Jing's children. And even when he announces, hey, my wife is pregnant, the Emperor kind of is like, and you dragged her here? Are you kidding me? And so he's like, well, if I can prove that they're illegitimate children, or if I can prove they're illegitimate children, then it won't matter anyway. And Prince Jing will get in trouble for lying to the Emperor, and I will press forward. Oh, maybe I'll have to take a look at that. Thank you for the recommendation, Truffle. And on that note, I take a quick sip, and then we shall start. All right, chapter 108, Fishy Education. Liu patted Dabao's head, and he didn't spank Erbao or Sanbao. Stacking their 3 soft hands together, he said, you all are brothers, so you should help and look out for each other, not fight amongst yourselves. When your brother receives a good thing, you should be happy for him instead of trying to take it, because... Liu suddenly stopped. He realized what he was saying and uneasily glanced at Prince Jing. Was it right to teach the children this way? They were children of the royal family, after all. Oh, that one's a horror? Oh, the Sixth Prince be scheming. He'd definitely be scheming. Nice. But they were his children too. If he didn't teach them, who would? Prince Jing nodded slightly at Liu to continue. Encouraged, Liu smiled and continued. Because things that are yours will end up in your hands in the end, and things that are not yours will never stay in your hands. Dabao looked at the cloth tiger, thoughtful. Erbao and Sanbao stopped trying to push the blame onto one another and looked at each other mischievously, both pushing their own butts towards their fish father for a spanking. Oh yeah, that's right. So when they felt bad, there's this cute little paragraph. Dabao knew he'd misbehaved. He sat ramrod straight, clasping his hands together and asking for forgiveness like an adult. Erbao and Sanbao looked at each other, took off each other's pants, exposing their little bums, and each asked their fish dad to spank the other one. Liu had to hold in a laugh. So that, we had to just reread that quickly because that was adorable. Like, it's hilarious. Liu asked them to put their pants on each other the same way they took them off. Dabao thought it through. Then he took out the beloved brush that Grandpa had given him, put it next to the sleeping Seabao, and patted Seabao's head, imitating his fish father. Meanwhile, Airbao and Sanbao sat together, trying to put the broken cloth tiger back together again. But the cloth tiger was too damaged for babies to fix it. When Airbao and Sanbao realized this, they lowered their heads, desolate. At a glance from Prince Jing, Wang Shi brought over a couple of other toys. He usually brought a few toys with him wherever he went these days, and amongst them was Airbao's favorite cloth duck and Sanbao's favorite rattle drum. Airbao and Sanbao, following Dabao's example, put the cloth duck and rattle drum in front of Sibao. When Sibao woke up and looked around, he saw that his brothers were sitting around him and had given him a lot of things. When they saw that he'd woken up, they all came over to kiss him. Sibao loved kisses. He immediately forgot about the cloth tiger and started to play with the toys and join in the kissing game with his brothers. I love these babies. They're so cute. Leo had successfully remedied a little issue between his children and made them forget about it completely afterward. Prince Jing was listening to him teach the fish children, and he thought that a lot of what Xiao Yu said sounded very sensible. He'd never heard some of those things before. Teachers and the great secretaries didn't say such things like this. He was used to princes only being polite to each other on the surface, but now he thought the way the fish children had made up was how it should be instead. Just then, a bright yellow robe briefly came into view outside the palace. Wang Shi, who wasn't far from the door, quickly gave Prince Jing a look. He was afraid that the consort would say something taboo by accident, and he wanted to stop him. Prince Jing shook his head, stopping Wang Shi from going over. He liked listening to Xiao Yu's reasoning. He didn't think this or that was an issue. The emperor heard Liu's words from outside. All emperors loved eavesdropping. It had been that way throughout history. Originally, he'd wanted to see what the couple would say in front of Empress Xiao Huai, so he'd followed them secretly and accidentally overheard Liu disciplining his children. The emperor didn't quite agree with what Liu was saying, so he muttered, "Nonsense." But there was a smile on his face. He watched the children playing together happily for quite a while. Head eunuch Luo was with him and privately thought, "Her Majesty said it was nonsense, but you're more excited than ever." I just love this family, except for the other princes, but this family, they're so cute. It just makes me happy reading about them. Prince Jing waited for the emperor to leave before walking over to Liu, who had no clue that the emperor's respect for him had grown a little bit. Luo can read the emperor like a book. He really can. He's like, "What you talk? You're so full of shit. You're smiling. I can see it." He looked up at the prince inquisitively. Prince Jing smiled and patted his head. Dabao, Airbao, Sanbao, and Sibao gathered to babble at each other. Turned out that their fish father liked having his head pet too. Their fish father actually blushed in front of the fish children. "Oh, right, Your Highness!" Liu flipped over the cloth tiger to the side with the embroidered name and showed it to Prince Jing and Wang Shi. Wang Shi looked at it several times and touched it too. Then he said with certainty, "There is a rule in Changchun Palace that things made by palace servants must be marked in a hidden place. But the Pu Liu embroidery there, forgive me, but I've never heard of this before." "Don't worry, consort. This is most likely a person's name, and I can find out who it is if I check the palace's personnel records. Liu thanked him immediately. He wondered if there would be progress this time, and if it had anything to do with the secret he knew now. Wang Shi ordered someone to retrieve the personnel records. Soon they came back to report that after Empress Xiao Huai's passing, a couple of things had been lost in Changchun Palace, one volume of personnel records among them. Wang Shi took the rest of the volumes and flipped through them, but he didn't find a Pu Liu. Wang Shi knew that it was a habit in the palace to claim an item was lost when someone couldn't find it, so he was about to start scolding. But Liu quickly said, "I was just curious as to who made the cloth tiger. That's all." On the surface, it seemed that they just weren't able to find it, but it was strange for the singular volume they needed out of several others to go missing. According to the person responsible for the records, the volume had been lost for a long time now. Those recorded on the volume were from that time and not certain servants. Having hit a dead end, Liu decided to go ask head eunuch Luo if Prince Jing had other wet nurses, as well as who this Pu Liu was. He was still thinking about the room he saw too. As Prince Jing watched the children play, Liu asked him, "Tianxi, can I take a look around?" Prince Jing agreed, but he didn't ask Wang Shi to follow Liu or have Wang Shi stay behind to watch the children. Instead, he picked up 2 babies and ordered Wang Shi to carry the other 2, and they all followed Liu. Liu was responsible for looking around, while he was responsible for the children and protecting Liu. Liu smiled. He asked a servant to lead the way and started to wander around the rooms. They finished looking around pretty quickly, but he couldn't find a room that was exactly the same as the one he remembered. Liu had thought before that the rooms in the palace looked very similar to the one in the memory, so even if the decorations and furnishings had changed, things like the ceilings and beams should remain the same. Liu had hoped that he could use these details to find the room he was looking for, but he was unsuccessful. After circling the place, he found that they'd checked every room. Liu counted the rooms they went through and felt something was off. Usually, in a palace like this, the rooms would be in pairs. There'd be an even number. That was how it was at Prince Jing's manor. Emperor Xiaohuai's palace should also follow this rule, but he was certain that they visited an odd number of rooms. So, kind of like with the pastries, numbers play a huge thing in Asian cultures to this day. I think it's the number 5 is considered very unlucky because it's like the number itself, I think, sounds like death, like the same pronunciation as death. I can't remember exactly that, but I do know one of like the first couple numbers is very, very unlucky. 4 is unlucky. Okay, so it's 4. I know because it's like, okay, so it is 4. I was like, I thought it was 4, but then I was like, maybe 5. Maybe 5 is the one that's lucky and 4 is the one that's not. Okay. Anyway. But yeah. Okay. Probably 4. But yeah, I think it's because it sounds like death or dying. Also 18 because Chinese hell has 18 levels. Oh, that's cool. I didn't know about the 18. That's my fun fact of the day. 18. She. That's it. She. Yes. So yeah, numbers and evens, odds, that sort of thing. So it actually being an odd number of rooms does actually matter. I love that he noticed that but didn't think about it with the pastries. Like, but then again, it's food, so he's completely oblivious. 4 was my favorite number as a kid. That's hilarious, Annika. Oh. I'm guessing it's not anymore because you said was. Okay. Usually in a palace like this, the rooms would be in pairs. They'd be an even number. Yeah, okay, I read that part. When Liu mentioned it offhandedly, the palace servant knelt in panic and said, "There was another room, but His Majesty sealed it." Yeah, but for different reasons. Good. Liu was shocked. He had only made a random guess based on Prince Jing's manner, and he'd managed to guess correctly? The servant peeled back a corner of a heavy curtain, revealing a yellowed seal. The curtain was blocking a room that he hadn't seen yet. His Majesty sealed this room when Emperor Xiaohui was gravely ill and forbade us servants from opening it. The date on the seal confirmed what the servant said. As it had been sealed on the Emperor's orders, Liu couldn't just casually open it. But since the layout of the rooms in Changchun Palace were symmetrical, Liu was able to compare it to the opposite side and concluded that the room he was looking for was probably this one. The plot thickens. The Liu embroidered on the cloth tiger was not necessarily related to the secret, but this room definitely was. The Emperor must be involved with this secret somehow. Why else would he order the room sealed? And he'd done it while Emperor Xiaohui was ill, so it would have been a blow to her dignity. Wasn't he afraid of distressing her? Liu was sure that the Emperor would usually avoid doing anything to harm Emperor Xiaohui. Hiding the existence of this room must have been even more important to him than Emperor Xiaohuai's dignity. The secret made him feel like he was surrounded by more questions the closer he got. What kind of secret was this? "Do you know what's inside?" Liu asked the servant. In his memories, he'd seen the wet nurse ingest a packet of medicine, but he didn't know what had happened next. Could it be that she'd died of poison in this room, and that was why the Emperor sealed it? What a frightening idea. Liu felt nauseated just thinking about it. The servant shook his head. "I came to Changchun Palace afterward, so the room was already sealed when I got here. I'm not sure what's inside either." Liu had expected this. He didn't ask anything else. Prince Jing noticed that Liu had been staring at the room in a daze and realized that something was off. He gave him an inquiring look. "What's wrong?" Liu shook his head. It wouldn't be easy to describe this issue to Prince Jing, mainly because he'd been too young at the time and had no memory of it. "Your Highness, consort," head eunuch Luo's voice came from outside. "The Emperor has brought gifts." The Emperor had been eavesdropping, and after he returned to Qianxing Palace, he had head eunuch Luo head over with gifts. Li was a little embarrassed. They hadn't been away from Qianxing Palace for very long, and the Emperor made it seem like one day apart was like 3 years. But if the Emperor had gifts for them, then they couldn't really stop him. I mean, that's one of those, "Oh no, oh, you have gifts? Oh no, oh, I guess we'll take them, you know." Prince Jing and Liu held their children as the gifts were announced. The Emperor had gifted Da Bao with a tiny wolf hair brush, small enough that his little chubby hand could hold it. To be fair, kids that young change a lot from month to month. Yeah, and gave beautiful zodiac toys to the other 3 children. The Emperor's already gifted them a lot, Liu thought to himself. So why did he suddenly want to give the children more gifts? In any case, it was quite obvious that the Emperor favored Da Bao. Maybe Da Bao was the one who made him feel like one day was akin to 3 years. I can't imagine, like, wolf hair brush. Like, I guess, like, we have bristle brushes, like the really soft bristle brushes for, like, babies, so I guess it's kind of akin to that. But I feel like wolf fur must be kind of coarse, like husky fur, kind of. It's not super soft. I'm details. Sorry. In addition to gifting the children, he also presented a gift for their father, Liu. It was a painting by a famous artist of Menicus's mother teaching her child. So Menicus is a famous Chinese philosopher, and his mother is known for being a good mother. There is a famous saying, Menicus's mother moved 3 times, recounting how she moved to 3 different homes in order to find a suitable environment to raise her child in. Oh, that's kind of cool. Knitted collie fur. Okay. All right. It seemed like an interesting detail. Like, it sounds cool. Okay. He felt like the emperor had misunderstood something. He wasn't implying that Liu should emulate Menicus's mother and move, right? Your Highness, consort, there's this as well. Head eunuch Luo had personally brought over 2 boxes of fish food. The emperor knows that his highness likes his pet fish, so he ordered me to bring some fish food. This is Jing shredded pork flavored fish food, a variety that the imperial kitchen has recently developed. He's even spoiling the fish. As he spoke, head eunuch Luo handed the box of fish food to Wang Shi, who immediately took it. Since it was food, he had to open it and inspect it. Wang Shi opened the box, and the smell of fish food wafted through the air. Head eunuch Luo's eyes suddenly blurred as he saw the consort and the 4 young Gonzi staring at the food, unblinking. Da Bao, Air Bao, San Bao, and Si Bao were all thinking the same thing. I haven't had fish food in a long, long time. It smells so good. I want to eat it. Liu's fishiness was activated, and he really wanted to eat it too. But he knew that he couldn't expose himself in front of everyone. He could control himself, but the children couldn't. The fish food and peach blossom pastries were both foods they'd been pining after since they were babies. But now they'd turned into humans, and they were only allowed the pastries. So when they saw the fish food, they couldn't stop staring at it. Children weren't supposed to like fish food? Ridiculous! Just as the children were about to start wailing, Liu glared at them fiercely. Frightened by their fish dad's scary eyes, none of them, from Da Bao to Si Bao, dared to move or make a peep. Liu took the opportunity to slam the fish food box closed and stuff it into his sleeve. Prince Jing was always paying attention to Xiao Yu. After Liu put the box away, Prince Jing cooperated smoothly with him. He took out a few pieces of peach blossom pastry and stuffed them into the fish children's mouths. They immediately forgot about the fish food. Head eunuch Luo rubbed his eyes. It seemed he'd been mistaken. How could he think that Prince Jing's children wanted fish food? As he was sitting down to have a cup of tea, Liu took the opportunity to put his questions to Luo Ryusheng. Head eunuch Luo, can I ask you a couple of things? He said in a low voice. Of course, consort. Head eunuch Luo had a great impression of this consort, so he was willing to answer his questions. Liu asked, Liu Gonggong, do you know a woman named Liu? She probably used to be a servant in Changchun Palace. An unnatural expression flashed across Liu Gonggong's face briefly, and Liu noticed it. Consort, why are you asking this? Liu was cautious. He brought over the ripped cloth tiger and asked head eunuch Luo to look at the words embroidered on the lining. Liu used this as his excuse. The children ripped the cloth tiger while playing. I saw this then, and I was curious. Apparently, it's someone's name. I see. Head eunuch Luo smiled. Consort, you're right. This is the mark used by a wet nurse named Pu Liu, who worked for Emperor Xiaohuai. She had been the eldest and fourth prince's wet nurse, so Emperor Xiaohuai trusted her a lot. She was Prince Jing's wet nurse as well, but she made a disastrous mistake and couldn't continue. Emperor Xiaohuai had to cast her out of the palace, and the emperor sealed up her former residence. Liu felt like he'd touched a sliver of light that connected several points of confusion together. If Pu Liu was truly the name of a wet nurse, and her age would be about right. She took care of Prince Jing for a short while, and the emperor sealed her residence. Is it the sealed room in Changchun Palace? Chapter 109, No Outside Fish. Yes, it's that room, said head eunuch Luo. The emperor sealed the room. Emperor Xiaohuai was already weak from her sickness. He didn't want her to be upset by seeing it again. So he did it for the empress. Liu was fairly certain that the sealed room was the one in his memories. If it was Pu Liu's residence, Pu Liu must be the woman in the memory. This wet nurse had been cast from the palace, and even her room was still sealed. It was obvious that her mistake had been catastrophic. The royal family had a lot of secrets, and Liu didn't know if this was something he could ask about. But he was only asking head eunuch Luo in private, so it shouldn't be an issue, right? We'll see. He kept prodding. Liu Gongkong, do you know what mistake Pu Liu made? Head eunuch Luo was silent for a moment. It's been a long time since that incident, so it shouldn't be a problem to tell you, consort. He said this at last. It was discovered that the wet nurse hadn't taken good care of the newborn Prince Jing, and she caused him to catch a cold. Emperor Xiaohuai was furious, but taking into consideration that Pu Liu had worked hard as the wet nurse of the late eldest and fourth prince, she showed her some mercy and only cast her from the palace. What? Why was it completely different from what he had imagined? Liu thought her mistake would be related to those drugs, but that was it? So it happened because she didn't take good care of Prince Jing? Head eunuch Luo nodded. I remember it clearly because it happened right before Emperor Xiaohuai passed away. Prince Jing was born weak and couldn't speak. The imperial physician said that he had to be looked after with great care, but the wet nurse cracked open the window a little and forgot to close it. It was cold at that time, and Prince Jing fell ill soon after. Emperor Xiaohuai was already doing poorly at the time, and with the added burden of taking care of the newborn highness, her health worsened. Liu was shocked. It happened in that room? Pu Liu had been sent out of the palace because she didn't take good enough care of the young Prince Jing. But in the memory, Liu had seen that Pu Liu made cloth toys for Prince Jing herself and looked at him with a gaze full of love. Liu had his own sons. He could tell that Pu Liu's love for Prince Jing was genuine. The plot thickens yet again. And someone's personality was not easily changed. Pu Liu was the wet nurse for the eldest and fourth princes, so she wasn't a careless person and knew what she should and shouldn't do. How did she make such a basic mistake when it came to Prince Jing? And even if the window was open, there's no way he'd catch a cold immediately. The window was far from the bed, and babies were usually swaddled. Cold wind would have to be blowing for quite a while for Prince Jing to get sick. Even if Pu Liu momentarily forgot to close the window, wouldn't she have noticed it sooner? He felt that Pu Liu's actions contradicted the love she held for Prince Jing. And what did this have to do with that packet of drugs? Liu's mind was mush. He kept chasing this secret since it seemed to be significant. It couldn't just be a normal scene from Prince Jing's childhood. His wet nurse had argued with someone and then was chased out of the palace soon after. Liu thought of another question. If Pu Liu was Prince Jing's wet nurse, then why couldn't we find her in Changchun Palace's personal records? I love Detective Liu, right? He's like, I don't understand. What? Head Eunuch Luo hadn't expected this. Impossible. How could she not be in the records? He was surprised too. He'd brought up the missing records deliberately, and Head Eunuch Luo's reaction seemed to be earnest. If even Luo Ruoshang didn't know that the volume was missing from Changchun Palace, it was unlikely that the Emperor had ordered Pu Liu's name to be removed. That's a fair point. Because, he does have the power to literally strike someone's name from record. So it's not an unfair assumption. That made things even stranger. Even if someone was cast out of the palace, there should still be records left of them. Why couldn't they find anything on Pu Liu? If the children hadn't damaged the cloth tiger, Liu would never have known that there had been someone named Pu Liu here at all. Ever since she was cast out of the palace, it's like she had never existed. I mean, he's persistent enough where he actually would have made a pretty decent investigator. He just kind of gets distracted, which is kind of his fishiness. Ever since she was cast... Head Eunuch Luo had answered all of Liu's questions. There were still a few weird things about all this, but Liu didn't want to ask anymore and make a mountain out of a molehill. Pu Liu was simply kicked out of the palace and had her room sealed. It wasn't some crime scene. Oh, right. Pu Liu wasn't even dead, was she? She must still be alive somewhere, so if Liu wanted to know more, he just needed to find her and ask her himself. But was it really necessary to get to the bottom of an incident that happened and concluded such a long time ago? If he really did find her, how was he going to explain to others how he saw and knew about Pu Liu taking the drugs? Maybe it was just medicine for a condition she had. Not every secret was perfect. Even if the secret wasn't what he thought it was, there was no need to be disappointed. Liu Gonggong, Liu asked, where did Pu Liu go after she was cast out? I heard she went back to her hometown, Luo Ruoshang replied. Li Yu asked Head Eunuch Luo to help him find Pu Liu's residence in her hometown. It was normal enough for a woman who left the palace to return home. If there were any new discoveries in the future, Liu would deal with them. Then. Luo Ruoshang excused himself, and Prince Jing and Liu returned to the manor with the children. Thanks to the unexpected situation that had cropped up in Changchun Palace, Liu decided to start coaching his children. Remember, you can't let others find out that you used to be fish, he told them. This was of utmost importance. He thought of the amount of effort Prince Jing had put into covering up for them, only for the children to almost expose themselves because of a box of fish food. That would have been a disaster. Liu was still fearful. He thought it was time to teach the children how to protect themselves. Da Bao, Air Bao, and San Bao didn't quite get it. It was nice to be a fish. Why couldn't they talk about the time when they were fish? Under the sparkling gaze of his children, Liu felt a little reluctant. He could understand his parents more with each passing day. He and Prince Jing protected the children well, but they would have to face the world on their own one day. It was necessary for the naive fish children to understand the evil within people's hearts as soon as possible. Only you guys and us fathers know about how you used to be fish, the young fish father said sternly. You absolutely cannot let anyone else know, because they can't turn into fish like us. If they find out, they'll do a lot of scary things to you. Airbao cocked his head. Scary? Liu said. They'll call you strange and lock you all up, and then they won't let you eat anything or see your fathers. Dabao, Airbao, and Sanbao suddenly sat upright, nodding fiercely. Being locked up with nothing to eat and not being able to see their fish father? That was truly quite scary. Liu was very satisfied with their reaction. In addition to not letting the fish children reveal their identities, he also had to make sure they wouldn't be kidnapped by bad guys. Thinking about the latter situation made him a bit emotional. Touching upon his own experience, he sincerely said, If something happens to me and I can't be by your side, but someone uses my name to call out to you, then they're probably lying to you. Ignore them. Dabao, Airbao, and Sanbao were all confused again. It was hard to be a secret fish. What did he mean if Daddy wasn't by their side, but someone used his name? The fish children didn't quite understand. In any case, remember what Daddy said, Liu said. Ignore everyone unless Daddy says you can trust them. That's a fair point for any kid. Like, hey, if I don't say they're okay, don't trust them. Dabao, Airbao, and Sanbao understood this and they nodded. Sibao's hand was propped under his chin. His head nodded too, and then slipped down off his hand. Sibao, Liu smiled slyly and nudged the little fish awake. Copy what Daddy just said 10 times. Sibao trembled, feeling sorry for himself. Sob, I accidentally made Fish Dad angry. His face is so scary. But I don't know how to write yet. Alright, one sob. We got a sob. Our first of the night. We are up to 12. With Dabao's help, Sibao wrote a page full of wa and presented it to his fish father with his soft little hands. Fish father knew what Dabao's wa meant by now, and he would smile at him whenever he saw it, but when he saw Sibao's wa, he wanted to beat someone up. So many sobs and so few yeets. Yeah, we only have 3 yeets. Liu refused to let any of his fish children stay confused about this, so he reminded them whenever he could, and eventually even the slightly slower Sibao. Is that better? I reset it. Are we good? We good? Hello? Okay. I reset it. Okay. Phew! I was about ready to jog upstairs, but I didn't have to. Okay. Phew! That was a quick fix. Okay. I'm just going to restart that paragraph. Before long, Qinghe Junshu, Yishizi and the princesses of Jinju's daughter turned 100 days old, and Yi Qinghuan held a banquet at Cheng'an Manor. Liu had promised to show up with his family and a school of fish. He planned to offer his congratulations first, and after he'd seen the princess and Yishizi, he would turn into a fish once he couldn't delay it anymore. Then he would be a real fish, and the little fish next to him would be plushies. It was hard to tell real from fake, and Prince Jing would be responsible for covering up anything that happened. They would just say that he'd returned to the manor early. They'd always done things this way, and Prince Jing didn't object. Before they left, Liu strung the fish plushies together and was just about to put them into the crystal bottle when he saw another bottle, exactly the same as his own, in Prince Jing's hand. Liu felt a little strange. When he looked at the bottle Prince Jing was holding, he saw a gold and silver carp that was very similar in pattern and size to his own fish form. Why was there another fish butting in on his territory? Liu was alarmed, but Prince Jing put the bottle in his hand, then took out another, slightly smaller bottle from his sleeve, with 4 small fish inside. Carefully transferred those fish to the bottle he'd handed to Liu. Liu realized that these new fish were very similar in color to the 4 fish children. Why did Prince Jing have these fish doubles in his possession? He's a little jealous. He does not like that Prince Jing has another fish on him. It's like, excuse me, husband. What are you doing with another fish? Huh. He mulled over it for a bit and finally realized that this was a stand-in Prince Jing had prepared for him and their fish children. Always using fish plushies when they were out and having to worry whether or not they'd be found out was quite inconvenient. Liu gets hilariously hissy when he's jealous. He really does. But if they brought live fish that looked similar to him and the fish children, then what was there to worry about? Liu quickly took the bottle and examined the fish closely. No 2 leaves were exactly the same in the world, and likewise no 2 fish were exactly the same. The larger fish's patterns were similar to his, but had fewer golden scales. If the fish was right next to each other, it would still be easy to tell the difference. But with just one fish, it was almost impossible to tell the difference if you didn't get too close. Yi Qinghuan and the Princess of Jinju usually saw the fish through the tank or the crystal bottles, so they wouldn't be overly familiar with the fish's patterns. The other fish would be enough to fool them, but if it was Prince Jing, that would be a different story. Of course, it would be a different story with Prince Jing. With this body double, he didn't have to turn into a fish anymore. He could turn into a fish if he really needed to, but the children wouldn't be able to until they were 7 years old. That's an if. Wang Shi had already muttered a couple of times that the little fish in the fish tank were always collectively asleep. Liu had made up a random excuse, but he felt that Wang Gonggong was getting suspicious. Prince Jing's new acquisition solved the problem easily. Liu was incandescently happy. You must have gone to great effort to get these fish. It had to have been difficult, if even he thought they looked similar. Prince Jing shook his head. It wasn't that much effort. He'd started looking for them as soon as Liu revealed his identity. It had taken over a year, and he'd begun to look for substitutes for the fish children as well, not too long after. The person he'd charged with this task had said that these things couldn't be forced, but Prince Jing thought that as long as he cast a wide net and kept looking, he would definitely find what he wanted. Liu happily held the bottle and blew a kiss to Prince Jing. What a mess. He used to get jealous of himself, oops. But now that these were fish substitutes and it wasn't him anymore, was Prince Jing going to have to treat the substitute fish the same as his fish pet in front of others? That might not even be enough. Did he even have to pet that fish as well? Liu realized this and immediately got jealous again. Tianxi, he blurted out, you can't have other fish. It's like, you can't pet this fish. He can be a stand-in, but you cannot pet him. Chapter 110, Merman at Night Attack. Prince Jing didn't realize what he meant at first, but Xiao Yu looked like he was facing his arch nemesis. Prince Jing shook his head. I won't. Perhaps Xiao Yu didn't want him to get too close to the substitute fish. Prince Jing himself wouldn't even let others touch Xiao Yu, so they shared that in common. Even after Prince Jing's promise, Liu still wasn't fully appeased. Luckily, Prince Jing didn't show the substitute fish very much affection and spent most of the time watching either him or their real fish children. Liu's jealous mind finally calmed down. Now he thought it through that the substitute fish was just an ordinary koi, not a yao like him that could turn into a human. It was completely ridiculous to get jealous of a normal fish. He felt a bit guilty. He decided to feed the fish well as compensation. Of course, regardless of what he felt about it, the substitute fish was only there to sit and look pretty. Towards certain humans who were way overthinking things, the substitute fish remained unbothered. When they arrived at Cheng'en Manor, Yi Qinghuan and the Princess of Jinju came out together to welcome them. Liu brought the children out first and introduced them one by one. Dabao and the others were dressed like little immortals in a New Year's painting, each of them wearing bright red robes decorated with gold, their hair up in little pigtails. Oh my gosh, they're in pigtails. I want a picture. They're in pigtails? That's so cute. The Princess of Jinju was so happy she couldn't stop smiling and said, almost in disbelief, "My heavens, there really are 4. In ancient times, it was rare to even see twins, but Liu had 4 at once. The Princess of Jinju almost didn't want to repeat the process after giving birth to just one child. She felt that Liu was practically a deity for birthing 4. "Please, sit." The princess ordered someone to prepare a seat for Liu as she served him hot red date tea. So red dates are said to help replenish nutrients in blood and help with circulation. So women often consumed it for health benefits. I think it was also a sweeter tea. Prince Jing, on the other hand, was given Bai Luo Chun, a green tea. I've never heard of that kind of tea. Green tea, yes, but that specific one. Huh. Liu took a sip of the sweet tea and noticed that the princess was drinking the same thing. There were a couple of plump red dates at the bottom of the teacup, and Liu immediately understood that the princess wanted him to stay healthy. They really looked out on family for the Chang'en group. This was a kindness from the princess. Liu thought to himself that he'd had it way too easy when he gave birth. The princess had had to work much harder. While they were talking, Yi Qinghuan personally brought over Qinghe Junji. The little princess was 100 days old now, and her skin was pale and supple. Her little arms and legs stuck out like lotus root joints. Her dewy eyes were like the princess's, but she had Yi Qinghuan's mouth. Around her neck was the lock charm that Liu had gifted her. When the fish children saw the little baby girl, they all widened their eyes, even Sibao, who was usually a beat slower than the others. They'd never seen such a small person. She was even smaller than they were. Dabao cried out and reached out to her. Uncle Yi was hugging her. He wanted to hug her too. Erbao, Sanbao, and Sibao followed Dabao's example and started crying out as well. They wanted to play with her. No, Fishfather scolded them. The children immediately put down their hands, disappointed, still staring at the baby girl. The princess and Yi Qinghuan almost laughed out loud. She's still so young, so she can't play with you guys yet, Liu said sternly. Remember, you have to protect her in the future. The children nodded in unison, but they still wanted to see her. The Princess of Jinju had a cradle brought out, and she put the baby princess inside. The 4 boys grabbed onto the cradle and gazed at her quietly. They're so smart, the Princess of Jinju exclaimed in surprise. The little princess is very beautiful as well. Liu couldn't help but admire her. That seemed to strike a nerve with Yi Qinghuan, whose eyes were glued to his daughter. Recently, I've been thinking about the fact that in about 15 years she'll leave me and marry into another family, he said sadly. I can't bear to let her go. Liu snorted. In terms of fatherly silliness, Yi Qinghuan really had Prince Jing beat. Oh, shut up. The Princess of Jinju thought Yi Qinghuan was embarrassing and wanted to throw her teacup at him to shut him up. But inadvertently, tears welled in her eyes. Even though Jinju was more open-minded, people there usually liked boys better. When she learned from the midwife that she'd given birth to a daughter, she felt a little uneasy, even with her status as a princess. But to her surprise, Yi Qinghuan and the entire house of Chang'an doted on the girl very much. Her in-laws visited her every day, asking her about the baby's condition and often wanted to take care of the baby. It lifted a burden off her shoulders. Originally, she'd wanted to try to have a son as well, so they could have one boy and one girl, but her husband, who was usually easygoing, became surprisingly stubborn. He told her that giving birth was hard and that she should recover her health first. There was no rush. He's such a good dude. I know he's kind of got his goofy moments in this book, but Yi Qinghuan is also one of those who's like, yeah, right. You're definitely high up there on the relationship goals. I would not be upset having someone like Yi Qinghuan. Yeah, he really is such a puppy. That's a good way to put it, Truffle. The care her husband and his family showed her made her realize that although the emperor had arranged her marriage, she had married into a good family. Mace Hughes? I don't know that name. Mace Hughes. Is that an actor? Oh, okay. Oh, the dad. Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. Yeah. Hopefully it doesn't end like him. That one hurt. The princess herself still wanted a son. Not because she didn't like girls, but because Liu's 4 sons were so lively and clever that it was easy to become envious. Yeah, no, he was such a good dude, and really does give that vibe. The princess couldn't help but look at Yi Qinghuan, and she noticed that Liu was also looking at Prince Jing. The two people, each with their own thoughts, instantly felt a connection. Liu scratched his cheek in embarrassment. It was because Junshu was so cute. He wanted one too. So they both were thinking, man, I want a boy. Man, I want a girl. But he couldn't see the baby girls for too long. Soon after, the wet nurse came over and took the little girl back. Liu learned from the Princess of Jinju that her daughter had caught a chill in the past few days and had only just recovered, so she couldn't stay outside for too long. The princess had been worried for several days because of her daughter's illness, especially since such a young child couldn't take medicine directly. Usually, the wet nurse would take the medicine first, wait until the medicine entered the breast milk, and then feed it to the baby. The 4 fish children had always been healthy, whether they were young fish or human babies, so Liu had never experienced this before. Yeah, I agree, Truffle. When the princess talked about this process, something tickled at the back of his mind, but he couldn't put his finger on what it was. With the little girl back in her room, the 4 children were disappointed that they couldn't see her anymore. Yi Qinghuan had taken care of these young masters back on the western border, so he knew their personalities well. He smiled and whistled, and Xiang Feng came running in, the hero here to save the day. Xiang Feng recognized Liu and wagged his tail excitedly at him. Xiang Feng, long time no see. Liu squatted down and patted Xiang Feng's head. Xiang Feng tried to lick his hand. Liu suddenly felt a chill on his back. He turned around, only to see Prince Jing quickly averting his eyes. Weird. The children's eyes lit up when they saw the dog, and they finally stopped whining about not seeing Qinghe Junshu. Dogs are good friends with humans. No bullying him, Liu quickly warned the children. But they were still too young and weren't suited for playing with dogs yet. Liu carried them and lowered them as much as he could so they could see Xiang Feng clearly. There's a lot of jealousy in this chapter, and I'm not really upset about it because it's kind of in funny ways. Xiang Feng had been trained by Yi Qinghuan, so he didn't seem to dare to get too close to the children. But he loved children, so he anxiously paced back and forth nearby. After Liu introduced them to the concept of dogs, Da Bao, Air Bao, and San Bao moved a bit closer and felt a little afraid of the sharp canine teeth. Only Si Bao fearlessly reached out a hand and playfully poked Xiang Feng's nose. Everyone present, even Xiang Feng, who loved to poke fish, was stunned. Prince Jing moved slightly, wanting to take Si Bao back, but Liu stopped him. He saw Xiang Feng tentatively nudge Si Bao back gently, and Si Bao let out a happy gurgle. Prince Jing finally relaxed. Don't worry, Yi Qinghuan comforted them warmly. Xiang Feng won't bite Si Bao. Liu knew it was true. Xiang Feng had never even bitten a fish. Even so, he observed the interactions between Si Bao and Xiang Feng nervously. He technically believed in Xiang Feng, but it was impossible for him to completely put his concerns to rest. Da Bao, Air Bao, and San Bao were encouraged by Si Bao and copied him, poking Xiang Feng with their fingers. Surrounded by children, Xiang Feng wagged his tail so vigorously that it started to have an afterimage. After wagging his tail for a while, he started to roll around. Oh, right, the princess remembered Prince Jing's fish. Where are the fish? She'd been anticipating this for a long time, but she'd forgotten about it for a bit while she watched the children playing with the dog. Liu smiled slightly. In the past, everyone wanted to see the fish as soon as possible, but it really was different after having kids. For the first time, Liu showed the crystal bottle without hesitation. The fish substitute swam around happily with the little fish in tow. The sparkling colors and colorful tail made Liu think it was himself for a moment. The princess smiled and got closer, watching the fish for a bit, and then furrowed her brows. Was there a flaw? Liu's heart tightened. What's wrong? Is something wrong? No, the princess responded. I just feel like the fish isn't as charming as it used to be. I should take that as a compliment, right? Right? Liu smiled and said something deep. Princess, it's probably because he's the same as me. He became a father, so he's become more mature and steady. The princess smiled, convinced. As Yi Qinghuan played easily with the 4 children, he asked Prince Jing, Aren't you going to go look at your fish too? The princess wasn't aware, but Yi Qinghuan knew exactly how much Prince Jing liked his fish, and how unwilling he was to let other people even take a single peek at it. But he generously brought his fish to the Cheng'en Manor, and for some reason, Yi Qinghuan felt like Prince Jing was even acting a little cold towards it. Yi Qinghuan grew more and more confused. Prince Jing had even done something unspeakable to his fish on his wedding night, and Yi Qinghuan still felt sorry for the consort even now. That's right, he thinks he had some sexy times with the fish. I mean, technically he did, but not in the way that he was thinking. Prince Jing's thoughts were clearly focused on his consort and his children. His cold eyes softened when he looked at Liu. If he was this affectionate, then why had he done that to his fish? Perhaps Prince Jing had just lost his mind for a few days, then realized the error of his way. Yeah, Prince Jing never cleared that up. He's that kind of person where he doesn't really care enough to. He doesn't care what other people think of him. So I don't think he would have thought that they'd have that misconception. He was just kind of more focused on getting Liu back into water, and I don't think he would really care otherwise to fix the misconception. It's good that you've thought it through now, Yi Qinghuan said. Prince Jing had no clue what his cousin was thinking. Yep, he doesn't have any idea that that's what Wang Gonggong and Yi Shizi thought that day. After Qinghe Jun Shu's 100-day-old banquet, Prince Jing took Liu and his children to visit the former Duke of Cheng'an. How would he even start? He'd have to write a novel. This novel? Liu knew that today they'd come not only to attend the banquet, but also to let the former Duke of Cheng'an officially meet his great-grandchildren. Yi Qian was anticipating them and waiting for them in the garden with some good wine. When he saw Prince Jing's 4 children, the rims of his eyes remained red for a long time. Perhaps it was fate. The emperor liked Dabao a little more, Prince Jing liked Sibao a little more, and the former Duke of Cheng'an felt more connected to Erbao and Sanbao, the 2 little rivals. He said that his 2 children liked to pinch each other when they were younger, too. Who were his 2 children? Liu and Prince Jing glanced at each other, respect for the former Duke of Cheng'an evident in their eyes. Since all 4 children were favorites of different people, Liu felt like everything had worked out. The former Duke of Cheng'an, whose hair and beard had gotten a little grayer since the last time they'd met, held Erbao and Sanbao in his lap as he asked Liu to tell him interesting stories from their time in the West. The elderly man was very interested in the duck army, and he quite liked the Qianjued roast duck that Yi Qinghuan had brought back. He could eat over half of a duck in one sitting. They stayed until late into the night, and Prince Jing returned to the manor with a slightly drunk Liu. The children had fallen asleep much earlier, and Wang Shi took them back to their room. Prince Jing put the dazed Liu down onto the bed and wrapped him in a brocade quilt embroidered with green aquatic plant patterns. There we go. I don't know why it's being such a punk, this stream, with the connection, but we're back. I think I noticed it within the first... Sorry. All right. Liu suddenly opened his eyes and looked around quizzically. Tianxi, we're home! Actually, we're home? Prince Jing smiled and patted his head in response. Liu's face was burning red and his mind was dulled from drinking. He couldn't remember what he wanted to do. Oh, yeah. Simp Master. I don't know if it was one of Yiling Gatriarch's shirts a while ago, but thank you. Prince Jing smiled and patted his head in response. Liu's face was burning red and his mind was dulled from drinking. Couldn't remember what he wanted to do. Wang Shi knocked gently from outside. If he was this drunk, the consort might have a hangover the next day, so Wang Gonggong came on Prince Jing's orders to deliver sobering tea. Prince Jing was going to go outside to bring in the tea and give Xiaoyu a cup, but Liu thought he was leaving and squinted in displeasure. In desperation, the drunk fish used a skill to keep Prince Jing there. Prince Jing only felt a gust of cold wind before a silver tail speckled with gold swept over and wrapped around his waist. Heh heh heh, where do you think you're going? I'll use my tail to yank you back till the end of time. The domineering fishtail pulled Prince Jing back forcefully. Prince Jing was afraid of hurting Liu, so he complied with the insistent tail and came back to bed. Liu, seeing Prince Jing change his mind, chuckled and hugged his neck. Tian Shi, Qinghe Junshu was so cute. Da Bao and the others really like her. And I like her too. Why don't we have a daughter like her? Misusing the mermaid's skill again, I see. I'd like her to be her even more if she were ours. Liu said a bunch of things that would have normally made him blush and wrapped his tail even tighter. What he meant was that if they didn't do it, Prince Jing couldn't leave. Prince Jing stopped in place and hugged him back. He would never reject a request from Liu, but the request this time was a bit special. He hesitated a little. Tian Shi, what are you waiting for? Liu scooted over and blew into his ear. What should I do? My tail is so uncomfortable. His tail moved slowly and rubbed around Prince Jing's waist. Prince Jing took a deep breath and picked up his drunken fish that loved to ignite fires. After coming back from the western border, Prince Jing had made a few changes to their bedroom. Some of the water from the outside pond had been brought in to make a small bathing pool. It was normally for aesthetics, but it could also be used after Xiaoyu transformed if needed. Prince Jing embraced his fish tightly and strode over to the pool. Liu took a... Okay, hang on. Chapter 111. Fishy Misunderstandings. Liu took advantage of his own drunkenness to ask for it once in an outrageous way, but the system didn't give him any notifications. The fish, eager for a daughter, wouldn't let Prince Jing go and asked for it again. But there was still no notification. Liu was upset. He was determined to make the notification appear. Was the bathing pool incompatible with a daughter? Then he would change places and try again as a human. He just wanted them to have their own little girl. Liu lost count of how many times they did it. In the end, Prince Jing had to just look at him apologetically. Liu poked a trembling finger out, asking for one more try. Prince Jing sighed softly, wrapped his finger in his hand, and put it back under the brocade quilt. Prince Jing draped some clothes over himself and got up from the bed. Liu noticed that his husband's back was still straight, but he was staggering a little. He wanted to laugh, but he was a bit ashamed too. He'd been too eager. Preparing for pregnancy and other matters like that couldn't be done in such a short amount of time. He couldn't be greedy just because he was a fish with the system. He really did want a daughter, but he had to think of his husband too. Liu opened his mouth to call out to his husband, but his throat was so hoarse that he couldn't make a sound. He wanted to flip over and get up from the bed, but then he realized that while Prince Jing was just walking a little funny, he himself couldn't feel anything below his waist. This was a battle where they both lost more than they'd won. Liu struggled on the spot for a bit before succumbing to exhaustion. When he woke up in the middle of the night, he found that he had turned back into a fish and was wrapped in an aquatic plant blanket, lying on his silver stone bed in the crystal fish tank. Prince Jing had probably put him there after his time was up. His fish form helped him relieve some fatigue. He didn't know how long he'd been sleeping, but at least he didn't feel numb anymore. Liu reluctantly shrugged off the plant blanket and swam to the side of the crystal fish tank to look at his husband. Since he was feeling much better, how was his husband? The clear, bright moonlight poured in from the window, and the room was silent. But the bed was empty, and the person he wanted to see wasn't there. Huh? Had Prince Jing stepped out? Liu waited a little, but Prince Jing didn't come back. At last, Liu couldn't wait anymore. He turned into a human to look for Prince Jing. Last night had been much too intense. His legs were still soft and rubbery when he stepped onto the ground, and he felt like he was floating when he walked. If he wasn't careful, he'd fall. He supported himself with the surrounding furniture all the way to the door and was about to open it when he heard someone saying quietly, "Your Highness, too much medicine will be harmful to your body. Please, think it over again." Yes, the servant understands. I won't say anything, and I won't let the consort know." Liu had already noticed that it was Prince Jing and a servant discussing something outside. Usually, he wouldn't keep listening if it was something he shouldn't be listening to, but suddenly hearing, "I won't let the consort know," made him feel a bit awkward. Deciding not to listen was different from keeping something from him actively, and it seemed like Prince Jing was hiding the fact that he was taking medicine from him, and that he'd done so before. He had to be on his guard a bit. Liu opened the door a crack silently and saw a shocking scene. Prince Jing took a bowl filled with dark liquid from a guard dressed in black and downed it without looking. After he finished, he coughed a couple times, wiped his lips, and gestured for the guard to leave. From what the guard said, Liu pieced together that Prince Jing was taking medicine, but he didn't know what kind of medicine, and it could harm him if he took it too long. If he took too much, sorry. After fighting a lengthy battle, his fish mind was filled with filth. He couldn't help but wonder if it was an aphrodisiac. Could it be that his husband was almost wrung dry and had to use medicine to keep it up? He and Prince Jing had a great relationship, and their married life was peaceful. They always did it naturally, going with the flow. Could it be that it was actually difficult for Prince Jing and he had to rely on drugs to keep up with him? Remembering Prince Jing's weak steps just now, Liu did think it was a bit suspicious. He'd heard that when it came to these kinds of men's health issues, outer appearances had no bearing on it. Those who looked fine might still suffer from these problems. From emperors to commoners, this issue seemed to affect everyone equally. If that was the case, then it was no wonder that Prince Jing wanted to hide it from him. After all, men could be incompetent in front of anyone but their spouses, especially this type of incompetence. Oh wow, we're really getting there. Liu couldn't keep thinking about this. Prince Jing was just about to come back in. He could lie down on the bed and pretend he didn't know anything, but something like this couldn't be hidden forever. He was more concerned about whether it could cause harm to Prince Jing's body if things went on like this. Would he take more and more medicine, rely on it more and more, and become even more incompetent? No. Married life and each other's dignity were important, but his husband's health was also more important. Incompetence in this regard was a condition, and a condition must be treated. If he let it drag on for too long, it might make it even worse. I swear it's like Liu's training for the medal at jumping to conclusions. Yeah, he doesn't even need a pole vault. He'd just... He couldn't let things go on like this. He intended to try to convince Prince Jing to seek medical help as soon as possible. Liu stood in the doorway without moving. Prince Jing was slightly startled when he pushed the door open and saw him. From Liu's position and his unusually serious expression, Prince Jing seemed to understand something, and his countenance immediately darkened. "Tianxi, I saw everything," Liu said nervously. "Don't hide it from me." He had to come up with a gentle reason to persuade Prince Jing to see the imperial physician. "It might be hard for you to talk about, but I'm more worried about your health. Prince Jing looked dejected. Perhaps he'd made preparations in case Liu found out. He hesitated for a moment, then reached into his sleeve and handed Liu a note. Liu knew that this was Prince Jing's explanation. He immediately opened it and read it. He felt that he knew Prince Jing well after being married for over a year and thought that Prince Jing had most likely taken medicine because of him. He couldn't let Prince Jing think that he was looking down on him in any way. He decided a long time ago that Prince Jing was more important to him than anything else. He had to make Prince Jing understand that the right thing to do was to face it together. Liu already had a plan in mind, but he suddenly stopped when he saw the words on the paper. It was a short line. He read each word carefully, but he still didn't quite understand it. Because I was born mute. Huh? What? I mean, of course he knew that Prince Jing was mute. What did that have to do with taking medicine? Did being mute connect to how he was incompetent in that way? He'd never heard of such a thing. Liu looked back and forth between Prince Jing and the note and asked, confused, What does this mean? Prince Jing's expression changed from embarrassment to surprise. They both quickly realized something was off. Liu quickly whispered his suspicions about Prince Jing being incompetent in that regard, and he couldn't help but reassure him. It's not a big deal. Prince Jing rubbed the spot between his brows. He'd assumed Xiao Yu knew what was going on, but Xiao Yu had actually misunderstood. But now that Xiao Yu had actually discovered that he was taking medicine, he couldn't keep hiding it. As if afraid Liu would run off, he held his hand tightly in his own. They went to the table together, and Prince Jing wrote something down. The truth was far from what Liu thought was incompetence. It turned out that the medicine Prince Jing took wasn't to help with incompetence or to fix it, but for prevention. A contraceptive? Liu suddenly realized that this must be the case. He couldn't help but feel angry at being deceived. No wonder there were no results, even though he'd been trying so hard for another child. Had he been doing useless work this whole time? Why? You know I want a daughter, but why? Prince Jing gripped his hand even tighter and glanced at the note. Because of this? Liu was so upset that he picked up the note angrily and read it again in front of Prince Jing. Prince Jing's body shuddered, and when Liu read those couple of words, he closed his eyes as if he was in pain. Liu's chest felt like it had been hit. When he returned to his senses, he realized what he was reading. Because I was born mute. Born mute. Born mute. The belated epiphany came. Liu finally understood. You're afraid. Liu let go of the note, trembling, and slowly fell back into a chair. Prince Jing was born mute. Since he was born that way, it was very likely that it would be passed on to their children. He took contraceptive medicine because he was worried about this. But Dabao and the others are fine. You didn't... As Liu spoke, he realized that Dabao and the others were different. He wasn't aware that when he got pregnant, and Prince Jing even less so. Who would have thought that two men could get pregnant? Naturally, they didn't try to prevent it, so he got pregnant and gave birth. At the time, he took a risk that he didn't even know about. What would he do if Dabao or one of the others had inherited Prince Jing's muteness? That was a possibility that was painful to consider. Luckily, their 4 children were fine, but what about in the future? Prince Jing had taken measures against it, so Liu never received any system notifications. He wanted a daughter, but it was impossible to get pregnant. These two are so sweet even when they're fighting. Couple goals. Yeah, they're trying to understand each other, and when they realize there's a miscommunication, they're actually working through it, not just getting angry, which is not as common as it really, really should be. I'm sorry, Prince Jing wrote. I asked the imperial physician and Liao Kong as well. The imperial physician said that just because these 4 children were fine doesn't mean that future ones would be. Liao Kong said that even though you're a carp spirit, the children are also mine. Since the children could look like him, there was a possibility that they could be mute as well. Prince Jing had no way to guarantee that their future children wouldn't be mute, so he could only make sure that they had no more children. He silently wrote, "Not being able to speak is painful." Instead of letting a child suffer a painful life after being born, why let a child lead such a painful life in the first place? Liu was stunned and speechless. Just a couple of calm lines revealed the pain that Prince Jing had deep in his heart and had never spoken about. Prince Jing couldn't speak, and who knew this pain better than he did? He knew it well. He didn't want his children to go through it. They couldn't take the risk even if there was the slightest possibility, because if Liu got pregnant again, they wouldn't give up the child. Not getting pregnant was the only way to cut off all possibilities. Prince Jing, seeing how Liu didn't react, almost couldn't control the panic and anxiety he felt. He started writing more apologies, and Liu's vision started to blur as he stared at the ever-increasing lines of sorries. It was disappointing that he couldn't have a cute daughter or any more children in the future, but Prince Jing's concerns were reasonable. He was thinking of the children, too. And Prince Jing was an innocent victim. He shouldn't have to apologize like this. Liu stopped his hand and prevented him from writing anymore. He said seriously, "This isn't your fault. Don't think that— Look, Tianxi, 4 children are enough for us," Liu choked. "It's my fault. I didn't know that you were suffering." Prince Jing's inability to speak meant he didn't show much emotion. Liu had mistakenly assumed that with the protagonist Halo and Tyrant character settings, he just had a cold temperament and didn't suffer too much from his condition. Right? I want to give Prince Jing a hug, poor guy. I agree. But he only wants Liu hugs, so I don't think he'd appreciate it. I appreciate the sentiment that he does not. Liu spent so much time with him and was so accustomed to it that he would even times forget that Prince Jing was mute. In the novel, it had just been a character trait. Suffering was a type of weakness, and the male protagonist couldn't have that. But how could the real Prince Jing be emotionless? He was a living person, after all. Liu ached for him. He pushed aside the paper with all the sorries, threw himself into Prince Jing's arms, and burst into sobs. "I'm sorry. It's all my fault. I should have realized sooner." Prince Jing hugged him hurriedly, the rims of his eyes red. He wrote in Liu's palm, "You're wonderful. With you here, I'm not in pain." Liu cried so hard that he hiccuped a couple of times, and his legs were still somewhat sore and numb. He sat down on Prince Jing's legs and glared at him fiercely with eyes as red as white rabbits. He wasn't intimidating at all. "You're not allowed to take medicine secretly anymore," Liu started to lecture his husband. "This type of medicine shouldn't be taken so casually. What if you become impotent?" Actually, Prince Jing had asked his servants, who were skilled in medicine, to take a look at the prescription, and it was fine. But he would listen to whatever Xiao Yu said. He couldn't become impotent, and he didn't want to either. He nodded in agreement. Since Xiao Yu was in the loop now, they could use other forms of contraception, as long as Xiao Yu didn't mind it. Liu thought about it carefully, and sure enough, he came up with something. His hot lips came close to whisper in Prince Jing's ear. Liu thought about it carefully, and sure enough, he came up with something. His hot lips came closer to whisper in Prince Jing's ear. "Tianxi, I have an idea." Prince Jing listened, half amused and half expectant. Liu chuckled and said, "Why don't you just not come in the future? Not going in at all wasn't an option. He's like, oh, if we don't do it, like, it won't happen. And he's like, that's a no. Like, that is not on the table. Sorry, sweetie. We're going to have to find another option. Also, that is another sub on the board. A very majorly plot important sub. So we are now at 13. I kind of find it funny. He's like, no, I'm not going cold turkey. Thank you. After Prince Jing returned to the capital, the emperor started to rely on him more. Prince Jing was the Dai's son, and he'd achieved great feats on the Western Front, so though he couldn't speak, the court officials didn't say much in opposition. The sixth prince had had no competition to speak of only a little while ago. But now, having been reprimanded by the emperor for the bribery case, he rarely appeared in public anymore. He chose to keep his head down, which was making several court officials who supported him begin to hesitate. For such a sweet guy, Liu can be amazingly stubborn. Yes, he can. These officials had originally supported the third prince. When the sixth prince started becoming more prominent, they had even tried to claim that the third prince and the sixth prince were on the same side. Now that the third prince was no longer favored, these officials had never spoken a single sentence more on the behalf of the third prince and gone straight to supporting the sixth prince. They were only fence-sitters, after all, so it was typical for them to randomly swap sides. Ugh. Fair weather fans. The sixth prince had his own plans. He couldn't be bothered with appeasing these officials right now. Prince Jing had moved to center stage. Not only did he have political achievements, he'd also gained the emperor's support through his sons. Comparing it to Lady Liang's pregnancy, the sixth prince could clearly tell that the emperor favored Prince Jing. If he took the initiative to compete with Prince Jing, he would just be following in the third prince's footsteps and make the emperor dislike him. But if he pretended to be weak and bided his time to find Prince Jing's mistakes, so that Prince Jing lost the emperor's favor, then the emperor would naturally turn back towards him. As for Prince Jing's mistakes, he was quite sure he'd already found one. Consort Zhang had found a couple of assistants for him, distant relatives of the Zhang family. The sixth prince could trust them, so he secretly sent one of the more capable ones to verify his suspicions and hopefully gather some evidence. On the outside, the sixth prince looked quiet and obedient, as if Prince Jing becoming more influential was no problem for him. But he was just waiting for confirmation. Once he had it, he would take him down in one strike. The wet nurse to the 4 young children, Madame Chin, had run into some trouble. Her son lost a lot of money in an investment and was chased back to his home by debt collectors. Madame Chin had already given them all of her savings, but it wasn't enough. She'd been looking dejected for the past few days and was inevitably a bit neglectful when taking care of the children. She made a lot of mistakes, and though they weren't huge mistakes, it was enough for Prince Jing. She knew she had erred, and she knelt to beg Prince Jing to not let her go from the palace. As long as she had this job, the manor would take care of her, and her whole family wouldn't have to worry for the rest of their lives. But if she was chased out, she would have nothing left. Madame Chin was one of the people serving Liu, so Prince Jing looked to Liu for his input. Though Liu was the consort, he was usually a bit lazy and didn't ask after the manor affairs. Prince Jing wanted to help Liu cultivate some authority and respect, but when he thought of what had happened with Auntie Xue, he didn't think that was a realistic expectation for Liu. Prince Jing could essentially guess what Liu would do, so he might as well let Liu collect some good karma. Prince Jing handed the reins over to Liu. Liu took the olive branch he offered. The fishy consort didn't really want to manage anything because power and status often turned couples against one another. Liu thought that staying away from power would lengthen their relationship, but the fish scamming system had given him the quest, share the country, so he couldn't just keep loafing around. Since he couldn't hide, then he should face it bravely. Liu took one tiny step in the direction of being the lady of the house, trying it out carefully. He would start with Madame Qin. The manor had clear rules, so it was easy to follow them and hard to make mistakes. Liu remembered that Madame Qin had a good temper and was quite meticulous, so why did she keep messing up? Is something wrong? Liu asked patiently. Why do you keep making mistakes? Madame Qin felt her nose sting. She was just a servant, and the children didn't need her milk anymore. The consort only needed her to help look after and play with the children. In all honesty, she didn't have much work to do every day, even though she was still being paid a wet nurse's salary. The fact that she kept making mistakes in spite of this made her feel extremely ashamed to face the consort. But not only did the consort not seem to mind, he asked her what was wrong. Even if she lost all her dignity, she couldn't keep it in anymore. She broke down and cried, telling him everything that had happened with her son. Liu asked for the amount, and Madame Qin stated a large sum of money. Liu thought for a moment. There's an easy solution, he decided. Since you're Da Bao and the others wet nurse, the manor will always support you. We can give you this amount of money right away and deduct a portion of it from your monthly salary. Liu meant that he would lend money to her on behalf of the manor and have her repay some of it every month. He might not have an eye for antiques, but he knew that his husband, who gave him a bunch of priceless gems to play with, was very rich. That amount of money wasn't much to Prince Jing, but to Madame Qin, it was life-saving money. Saving a life was better than honoring someone with a grave after the fact. He wasn't just giving it to her for nothing. It was essentially an interest-free loan. Since she would pay back some of it every month, Madame Qin had no need to be troubled or feel embarrassed. Prince Jing had given him the full authority to handle this matter, so it would have been simple enough for him to ask Prince Jing to immediately pay off the debt. However, he felt that now that he was the consort, he had to give it some more thought and consider the case more carefully. Madame Qin had made mistakes, so it wasn't fair or right if he just repaid her debt. What would the other servants think? That they could take advantage of him by making mistakes? Compared to whom to help and how to help, the manor's authority was still very important. That was why he chose to lend her money instead. The manor wouldn't lose anything, and Madame Qin would be overcoming this difficulty on her own. Meanwhile, outsiders would see the humanity of Prince Jing's manor. Madame Qin was overjoyed with this arrangement and wrote a promissory note on the spot. After Liu and Prince Jing took a look at it, Liu had Wang Shi file it away. Liu glanced at Prince Jing and added, "If others in the manor have similar difficulties, please tell His Highness and he will make the proper arrangements." Prince Jing unconsciously curled his lips into a smile. He'd wanted to give his consort a chance to cultivate some authority through this incident, but his consort gave him the chance instead. Wang Shi felt quite sure that this was for Prince Jing's sake. To the rest of the country, Prince Jing had a reputation for being strict and harsh. It hadn't mattered much in the past, but now that the emperor valued Prince Jing, Wang Shi was afraid that Prince Jing's reputation would be a burden. If they did as the consort said, then his reputation would become a positive one. Wang Shi waited expectantly for his master's response, and Prince Jing glanced towards him. Do it. Wang Shi made arrangements immediately. Since she'd made mistakes in taking care of the children, Madame Qin still had to be punished to placate the masses. Liu had a problem with the manor's minimum 30 strokes of the board rule, though, so he wanted to take this opportunity to change that as well. In the past, he'd been a lowly pet fish, so the most he could do was act cute. It wasn't particularly useful. Now that he was the consort, he had to take advantage of his new power. Tianqi, let's make some small adjustments, Liu discussed quietly with Prince Jing. The first offense will incur 10 strokes, while the next one will incur 30. How does that sound? At first, he wanted to cut it down to 15, but he was afraid that if he directly said 15, Prince Jing would think it too large of a reduction. Liu decided to be a bit cunning and started with 10 instead. Prince Jing, of course, guessed exactly what he was thinking. He pursed his lips and wrote, First offense is 15 strokes. The next offense is leaving the manor. It was reasonable that the punishment for the next offense was higher. Liu internally put up the victory sign, but externally solemnly agreed. Madame Qin thanked him profusely and accepted her punishment. After she was struck with the board, she went to accept the money. Wang Shi Gonggong gave her some silver, and she limped out to pay the debt. When he saw her, the debt collector thought she must have tried to steal money from her master and ended up punished, so he sneered. Look at how miserable you are, yet you still cannot pay the loan. I have a way for you to get rid of that debt. Do you want to hear it? Madame Qin was holding the money that Wang Shi had given her, but she did want to get rid of her debt, so she thought she would hear him out and didn't let him know that she already had the money. I know you're the wet nurse at Prince Jing's manor. I want something from there. If you can get it, then I'll forgive your debt. Madame Qin's heart raced. The debt collector had heard that there were quadruplets in Prince Jing's manor, and he wanted something from the children to be made into amulets to protect a pregnant woman and her child at home. The country did have such a custom. Things like bracelets or handkerchiefs would be enough, and Madame Qin had quite a number of these things. But while she was pondering whether she should accept, the man specified, I only want a drop of blood from the eldest young master. On one hand, she could repay the prince's money honestly, and on the other hand, she could do what this person said. She had more opportunity than most to get close to the young master, and it was just a drop of blood. It wasn't hard to get it when he was sleeping. Madame Qin hesitated. When she reached her hand into her robe and felt the money the consort had given her, she gritted her teeth. The consort had been kind enough to help her. How could she hurt the young heir in return? She didn't know what this man's intentions were, so she calmed down and decided to delay him. She said that she needed to think about it, then immediately fled back to Prince Jing's manor and knocked on the door to Prince Jing's study. The candles in the study stayed lit until late night. After she left, Wang Shi went in and didn't leave for a while. The next day, Madame Qin found the debt collector and said she was at the end of her rope, so she was willing to help. Her eyes looked triumphant. Madame Qin wanted to do it herself, but the debt collector insisted. Take me to the manor. I'll do it. She knew he didn't trust her. She had to do as he said. She snuck him in by pretending he was a relative who was just here to ask the manor for a job. After a couple of questions, Wang Shi agreed to let the man enter the manor. As soon as he entered, he was almost dazzled by all the water in the manor. Madame Qin smiled and said, His Highness loves fish, and this was prepared for Master Fish. The man nodded indifferently. It was known in the capital that Prince Jing liked his pet fish. Liked is too Too small a word, bud, but yes, he liked his pet fish. Prince Jing's manor was heavily guarded, and they were both patted down several times before the man was finally brought into a courtyard. For some reason, there were 2 fat ducks in the courtyard, making a racket. As the man stepped in, the 2 ducks flew towards him and started pecking at him. The man lifted his hand to hit them, but Madame Chin quickly said, "You can't. This is the consort and the children's pet duck that they brought back from the Western Front. If either are injured, the guards will find out. You'll be beaten if they lose a single feather." Pet fish and pet ducks? What kind of weird manner was this? The 2 Western ducks were powerful. They pecked him until it hurt. But for the sake of his plan, he had to just endure it in silence. Madame Chin slowed down and led the man into an inner room. There was a child lying on the bed, facing away from them. She quickly walked in, calling out softly, "Young master?" The child rolled over, still asleep. From a distance away, the man glanced at the child's face and matched it up mentally with the portrait he'd received. He was confident now. The child was about to wake up, so he quickly asked Madame Chin to lull him back to sleep again. When the child fell asleep, the man took out a handkerchief from his sleeve and put it over the child's face, holding it for a bit. Madame Chin thought he was going to hurt the young heir, so she hurriedly rushed over to save him. The man pushed her aside and removed the handkerchief once it had been on there for long enough. The handkerchief wasn't placed tightly over the child's face, so it wasn't dangerous. But there was thornapple pollen on the handkerchief that would make a person fall unconscious. Once the man saw that the child was properly asleep, he took out a silver needle and white porcelain bottle from his sleeve. Madame Chin collapsed to the ground, unable to look. After he'd collected the blood, the man took a silver bracelet from the child's arm and left. All of this was viewed by everyone waiting in the next room. Is he gone? Liu was holding Da Bao in his arms and gestured at Prince Jing. Prince Jing nodded. Da Bao was sitting in his fish father's arms, afraid to even breathe too loud. He'd just seen what happened and immediately understood what fish father said about people being scary. Da Bao knew that he was still too young and couldn't do anything, though, so he simply remembered that man's face and thought he would tell Emperor Grandpa later. Oh, he's gonna go tell on Grandpa. Tell it to Grandpa, get your butt arrested. Once Prince Jing made sure it was safe, he rang the jade bell. Wang Shi soon brought Madame Chin in. She stood there, her eyes downcast. Prince Jing ordered Wang Shi to rip up the promissory note as a reward, and she thanked him profusely. The child, lying on the bed, jumped down and joined them in the room where Prince Jing was waiting, where he took out a bottle of liquid and skillfully wiped his face. The chubby little face that had looked the same as Da Bao suddenly turned into an adult's. Even his voice became an adult's voice. This was actually a man with dwarfism. He was about the size of a child. He was a special guard under Prince Jing's command, and Prince Jing had called him over to work with Madame Chin and Wang Shi on this particular scheme. The guard made his greetings and raised his head. Liu's eyes shone with respect. He felt like this guard was incredibly skilled. He looked a lot like Da Bao, and their differences in figure were impossible to see when he was lying down. It was more than enough to trick a man who'd never seen Da Bao before and had to rely on a portrait to identify him. "Did you change your appearance?" Liu asked excitedly. I love teamwork, right? He'd transmigrated, turned into a fish, and even given birth, but he'd never thought he'd be able to witness such skill in his lifetime. The guard paused and smiled. "I don't know what you mean by change. I just used some makeup. It was nothing but a small trick." "Even so, that was amazing. How did you do it?" Liu couldn't be stopped when he was curious. The guard was going to give him more details, but when he saw Prince Jing's darkened expression next to him, he decided instead to just respectfully clasp his fists together in farewell and take his leave. Man, dude was about to have a whole like fan nerd rant about his hobby, and then he looked over at his boss and was like, "Oh, Okay, boss is getting jelly. Time to split. The distracted consort focused once again on his husband's big plan. The feeling of plotting against someone with Prince Jing was so satisfying, especially when the other party thought they had already won since they'd already had the young heir's blood. In reality, they couldn't have been more wrong. He didn't even need to think to know who had sent that man, but he was worried that the sixth prince would suspect something. Your Highness, will he believe this? Liu asked. Yes, Prince Jing was sure. The sixth prince was careful and meticulous. If everything went too smoothly, he'd definitely question it. That was why Prince Jing had ordered the guards to check them over multiple times and had even brought out the duck army to guard the family. They had pecked the man dozens of times. Things felt more real when they were more dangerous. Prince Jing knew the sixth prince desperately wanted to catch his mistakes, so he'd just hand him one over on a silver platter. If the sixth prince rose to prominence again, it would be hard to deal with him. But what if he knew a huge secret of Prince Jing's? Although the secret was fake, as long as the sixth prince believed it was real, it would work. They're so smart, so tricky. Duck Army, let's go! I agree, Annika. Right. Okay. Chapter 113. Fishy Charging. Why did the sixth prince need Dao Bao's blood? The technology of ancient times was not as good as that of modern times, so what use was blood? Palace novels often included scenes where they used blood to confirm the legitimacy of a child, but as a person from modern times, Liu knew that these weren't accurate. What could the sixth prince do with Da Bao's blood? Prince Jing tapped Liu's forehead lightly and told him a secret of the royal family. The imperial physicians in the palace had their own secret methods of verifying whether or not someone was a member of the royal family through a few drops of blood. As soon as the sixth prince's lackey mentioned what he wanted to take was some blood, Prince Jing knew that the sixth prince probably suspected that his children were illegitimate. Prince Jing had let him take the blood on purpose so that the sixth prince would think he was correct. Next, the sixth prince would definitely make arrangements to let the emperor know. The crime of sullying the royal bloodline would be more than enough to make the emperor change his attitude. But at the same time, the crime of slandering a prince was severe enough that the sixth prince would never escape it. What about 4 princes? Because that's what the babies are. Liu and Prince Jing waited patiently for the sixth prince to make a move, as expected of the most patient and slippery boss. Though he'd suffered a lot of losses and faced a lot of mistakes at Prince Jing's hands, he could still keep calm and bide his time until the best moment. May he bide his time until he turns into a large turtle, Liu thought. 2 months later, the annual hunting festival was approaching. The hunting festival, as the name suggested, was a large-scale hunting event the royal family organized in ancient times. There was a well-known joke that the founder of a country was good at fighting, while the emperor who maintained it was good at hunting. It went to show how important hunting was in an emperor's career. As a relatively clear-minded monarch, the emperor was quite keen to organize hunting events to show off his prowess, so the hunting festival was created. This was a grand hunting event, and there was only one rule. Regardless of seniority or status, only the results mattered. The emperor usually led a group of royal children in a fierce competition against the civil and military officials for the best prey. Those who ranked highly would receive praise and rewards from the emperor, and those who performed outstandingly would receive promotions, even if they were from a humble background. The hunting festival was basically a shortcut to success. Everyone knew that if you performed well, the emperor would pay attention to you. Even children as young as 7 or 8 years old would bravely pick up their bows and arrows to rush to the grounds with everyone else. But there were some who didn't want to participate in this event that everyone else enjoyed. Prince Jing rarely went hunting. In the hunting festivals of previous years, he always stayed in his manor instead. Usually, Yi Qinghuan would go on Prince Jing's behalf to just go through the motions. Truthfully, Prince Jing's actions were understandable. After all, what was the point of a prince with a disability making an outstanding showing for himself? Nobody considered it rude that he didn't go. Instead, they thought that it was how things should be. The emperor never said much about it either. Though seniority didn't matter in the hunting festival, the emperor still took first place every year. In the past, second place had usually gone to the second prince, or sometimes the third prince. That wasn't really a surprise. The ranks further down were the ones people fought for. But the situation changed drastically this year. The second prince had gone insane, the third prince was abandoned, and the sixth prince was a dark horse who'd made a breakthrough. Everything seemed to be settled, but then Prince Jing, who was not at all preferred and should never have been an option for Crown Prince, went to the Western Front and came back, and things changed again. As the only prince in the country who had achievements in both politics and military exploits, as well as the noble status of a Dai son and 4 lively, healthy Gonzi, being born unable to speak was no longer a big deal, especially as Prince Jing's oldest son was one of the emperor's favorites. Every time Dabao entered the palace, he would sit directly in the emperor's lap. All of these were clear signs of Prince Jing's sudden rise to prominence. Night Truffle, if you can hold on. Oh, okay, yeah. I thought it was the last chapter, but it's like this one and one more. Good night. See you Thursday for book 4. Though there was a saying that princes were not easily given the title of prince, it wasn't difficult to tell who had lost favor permanently as opposed to a brief fall. It was obvious when you compared him to the Marquise of Ping and the Marquise of Van. Prince Jing's title was, perhaps, special, and indicated his place as the emperor's favorite. Clever people would quietly pay attention to the rankings of this hunting festival, as once the rankings were determined, it might be obvious who was going to become the crown prince. Even the emperor was looking forward to it. But Prince Jing, who rarely participated, still said that he didn't want to join in this year and planned to stay in the manor with his consort and play with the children. The emperor couldn't let things go on like this. He'd seen the battle reports from the western border. He knew that Prince Jing could lead troops and even fight bandits. What was wrong with some hunting? With a darkened expression, the emperor ordered head eunuch Luo to send the message that no matter what, Prince Jing must participate in the hunting festival and was not allowed to shirk that responsibility. Prince Jing had no choice but to head to the hunting grounds with Liu. They were afraid that something would happen to the children if they were left at the manor, so after some discussion they decided to take them all along. There would be imperial guards to keep them safe at the hunting grounds. Prince Jing would also bring enough people to look after the children, and since they couldn't really walk yet, there was no danger of them running around when they got there. With the children's whereabouts decided, all that was left was to prepare. There were special robes for hunting. Prince Jing made Liu a set of white riding robes with gold hems in advance. It was a proper narrow-sleeved, short outfit that looked quite dashing. As soon as he put it on, Liu thought he was so handsome that he nagged Prince Jing to wear a matching one. He was drooling at the thought. A prince and his consort had to wear matching outfits for such an occasion. At Liu's encouragement, Prince Jing didn't just have an outfit made for himself. He also commissioned little riding clothes for the 4 children. I just realized I should probably put, like, the time that Truffle left in the thing. It was like 2:08, I think. (2:08-ish). There we go. For later, Truffle. Okay. At Liu's encouragement, Prince Jing didn't just have an outfit made for himself. He also commissioned little riding clothes for the 4 children. When the hunting festival rolled around, Prince Jing put on his matching set of black riding robes with a jasper belt around his waist and a violet gold hairpiece. With his handsome face and upright, attractive figure, he and Liu were truly a match made in heaven. The handsome, attractive riding outfits the adults wore were shrunken down for the 4 children, making them look round and cute. Da Bao was wearing a little gold riding set and little leather boots. His round body made the clothes bulge, and he wobbled dreadfully with every step, making Liu nervous. He could already stumble around on his legs and say a couple of words at a time, slowly but clearly. The imperial physician and the wet nurse both said boys usually started talking later than this, so the little heir was already doing very well. Erbao and Sanbao were wearing riding sets of gold mixed with silver. They couldn't walk yet, and they couldn't talk as well as Dabao could either. Dabao held onto the wall and started to move, but Erbao and Sanbao rolled on the ground like 2 shining balls and clung to Dabao's boots, insisting that he drag them along with him. Dabao didn't treat the 2 with disdain. His little face showed a seriousness that was inconsistent with his age. He raised his stubby legs to step forward with all his might, but he still couldn't move. It's like, I got it. I can do it. I can move my brothers. Liu and Prince Jing both laughed. Sibao, who was wearing a handsome black riding set with silver trim, sat in his fish father's arms and giggled nonstop. But his great joy ended up bringing him sorrow. As he laughed, Liu blinked at him and put him down. Scatterbrained Sibao was the one least interested in his human form, and he felt the same way about walking. Compared to Dabao's seriousness, Sibao put in almost no effort. He let the soles of his feet touch the ground for just a moment, then plopped onto the ground with his butt, reaching his arms out and crying, "Ah!" for his fish father to carry him again. Now that Liu had put him down, he wasn't going to pick him back up again. Sibao stared at him with his eyes that looked like Liu's, then copied Erbao and Sanbao by holding onto Dabao's legs. Dabao had suddenly gained another brother as a pendant. Liu laughed. Wang Shi had already brought the horse over, and Prince Jing put the children in the carriage first. Wang Gongong was in charge of taking care of them, so when the children were safely in the carriage, Prince Jing, in a good mood, pulled his consort onto his horse and wrapped his arms around him, slowly trotting beside the carriage. Liu kept mumbling that sitting in front made him look childish, but when the horse started running, he screamed immediately. When they arrived, Prince Jing and his family first headed to the dragon tent to greet the emperor. The emperor was quite satisfied with how tactful Prince Jing was and whispered a few sentences to him. This was the first time Liu had participated in such a large-scale event. To avoid any mistakes, he stood politely beside Prince Jing. The emperor gave him a few words of encouragement as well. He seemed very wise and powerful at this moment. But when he saw the children wearing neat riding sets beside Liu's legs, his demeanor changed. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Dabao, are you going to hunt today as well?" The regal emperor transformed into a kind grandpa. He scooped Dabao up with one arm, smiling. "Grandpa, hunting!" Dabao said crisply. Once Dabao learned how to talk, Liu had tried to teach him the proper way to address the emperor, but grandfather was still difficult for a child to say. The emperor used this as an excuse to permit Dabao to keep calling him grandpa. He thought it made them seem closer. It does. The emperor was happy that Dabao knew to be ambitious at such a young age, and had a thought to teach Dabao archery himself. But such a small child didn't have the arm strength to hold a bow. The Emperor ordered Liu Rusheng to find a slingshot and swapped archery for shooting. Da Bao's chubby hands fiddled with the string, not knowing what to do. The Emperor stroked his beard and was about to teach him how to use it when he remembered that his son, Prince Jing, was still waiting for him. Without the Emperor's permission, Prince Jing could not move. "You can go. If you don't place well, don't come back to see me," the Emperor ordered expectantly. Prince Jing nodded and met Liu's gaze. The Emperor's edict for them to participate in the hunting festival had come unexpectedly, and Liu didn't know how to ride a horse. Prince Jing gave him a few last-minute lessons, but Liu still wasn't very good at it, so it wasn't likely that he would achieve much this time. And the children had come as well, so one of them had to look after them. They couldn't both hunt. They'd heard that the sixth prince had arrived before them and had already been at the hunting grounds for an hour. He had gathered a lot of game and was among the highest ranks so far. Tianqi, don't worry, go ahead." Liu cheered for his husband, encouraging him on his way out hunting. Show him what you've got." Prince Jing nodded and pulled Liu into his arms to rub his head, not caring who was nearby. Liu took the chance to be a little lovey-dovey with him, then giddily returned to the tent to sit in a less priority position near the Emperor. He listened to the guards' reports. Sometimes the sixth prince would catch something, and other times Prince Jing would. The sixth prince was way ahead at first, but Prince Jing caught up quickly and closed the gap. The first animal Prince Jing caught was a white rabbit. It was still alive, with only the skin on its leg damaged by an arrow. The Emperor's mouth twitched as he looked at it, and he asked Liu to take care of it. The children all started to clap. "Rabbit!" Erbao and Sanbao said, laughing. Sibao reached for it. "Wabbit!" Sibao was always a little slower, and this was one of the rare moments where he spoke a word clearly. The children surrounded the snow-white rabbit, clearly enjoying it. Liu was suddenly brought back to the time the ducks had entered the house for the first time. Prince Jing must have done it on purpose. What was he supposed to do with such a cutie? Liu happily asked Wang Gonggong to bandage the rabbit's leg. It looked like there would be another pet to add to the pet fish and pet ducks in the manor. The results of the hunt wouldn't be available for a while, and the Emperor got tired of listening to reports, so he started teaching Da Bao how to use a slingshot. A slingshot needed pellets, since it'd be useless to just pull the string. But the usual pellets were made of either iron or stone, which was too dangerous for children to play with. The Emperor, who often heard Prince Jing praise Liu, asked Liu to think of something. Liu was quite clever. He tore a piece of paper up and scrunched it into a ball. That wouldn't hurt if it hit someone. Pellets acquired, the Emperor held Da Bao's soft little hand as they pulled on it and let go. A paper ball flew out and lightly bounced off head eunuch Luo, who was trying to inquire for updates. Liu Rusheng turned around, confused. Why do I feel like that's like the scene in Lion King with Zazu? Like, turn around. We're practicing. Practicing what? Pouncing. Pouncing! The Emperor and Da Bao both wore perfectly innocent expressions on their face. Don't look at me. I didn't do it. Liu couldn't hold back his giggle. There wasn't anything big going on here with the Emperor, so he was mostly preoccupied with Prince Jing. Right? It so is. The guards had come to report several times. The sixth prince was always ahead. At one point, Prince Jing almost caught up, but the gap had widened again. Liu couldn't look too anxious in front of the Emperor, but he was worried for Prince Jing the entire time. Unthinkingly, he walked to the front of the tent and looked for Prince Jing among the participants. He found him quickly. Prince Jing was riding a horse and looked exhausted. He lowered his head and wiped the sweat from his forehead. There was a bunch of prey hanging from the horse's back. Liu felt sorry for him. Because of a single sentence from the Emperor, he had to go to such great lengths to prove himself. Liu watched him from a distance. Suddenly, Prince Jing seemed to hear his thoughts and turned his gaze to Liu. His lips curved into a smile, and he galloped towards Liu, arriving in front of him in an instant. He pulled Liu onto the horse, holding the reins with one hand and hugging him tightly with the other. He covered Liu's lips with his own, not allowing for any resistance. Liu was instantly surrounded by his hot, familiar breath. Startled, he tried to softly push him away, but it was no use. Instead, he passionately kissed him back. When the kiss had ended, Prince Jing nuzzled his neck contentedly and put him down. Now, he seemed to be possessed by the god of war. Full of energy, he raised his riding crop in the air, galloping back to the competition. Seriously, did he think Liu was a battery pack or something? Feeling invigorated, Liu snuck back to his seat quietly, blushing. The Emperor was still teaching Dabao how to use the slingshot, and Wang Shi was watching Airbao, Sanbao, and Sibao play with the rabbit. Nobody should have noticed that. Only a short while later, he heard the guards report that the number of Prince Jing's catches had surpassed the 6 princes. He just needed a little love. And here's our Danmei horse. This one at least doesn't have the terrifying eyes that some of them have. Kind of looks a little angry, though. That's okay. Okay. And I think this is the last chapter of our book. It is. Chapter 114, Fish Feeding. After the hunting ended, Prince Jing returned along with the 6th prince. No matter how good the 6th prince usually was at acting, he almost lost control of his expression when he found he'd been beaten by a mute. Right, that's a pretty innocent horseback activity for Danmei. A passionate kiss? A-okay for the horses. In the past, when the 3rd prince had been present for events like this, at most he was just the 3rd prince's wingman. He was actually a good hunter, but he'd never dared show off in case the 3rd prince had become suspicious. Now he was finally able to show off a little. But, to his surprise, Prince Jing just had to come too. Most people didn't know that the 6th prince was a good hunter, and the 6th prince didn't know that Prince Jing was skilled either. After all, Prince Jing had never participated in the hunting festival before. To ensure he placed well, the 6th prince had arrived very early and was the first one to rush out when the drums and fanfare started. Unlike Prince Jing, who took his time getting to the hunting grounds with his entire family after everyone else had already started ages ago. There was no rule that said everyone had to start at the same time, just that the total amount of prey taken down determined their ranking. Even if someone arrived late, they could still rank high as long as they were skilled. That was, of course, the ideal situation, but it had never really happened before because arriving late would lose them opportunities and affect their morale. However, even though Prince Jing started only halfway through the competition, the 6th prince found that any time he relaxed even a little bit, Prince Jing kept catching up. The 6th prince was already tired, and Prince Jing wasn't in much better condition. Since most of the game had already been caught, and Prince Jing had to work harder to find new quarry, his progress slowed down. The 6th prince was sure that his rival wouldn't be able to surpass him. But then, through some unknown means, Prince Jing suddenly started glowing with energy while the 6th prince could barely lift his bow anymore. Prince Jing caught more game, claiming one target after another. The 6th prince gave it one last try, but in the final moments of the competition, it was as if Prince Jing had received help from a god, and ended up with more game. Even though the 6th prince had started a full hour earlier. The 6th prince felt humiliated. It seemed like he wasn't that great at hunting at all. 5th royal brother is truly a latecomer that came out on top and stole the show. the sixth prince said with a strange tone as he entered the tent. Prince Jing didn't even look at him as he strode to the emperor to greet him and report his achievements. The emperor was extremely satisfied with this result, as expected. Prince Jing didn't disappoint him. Even though he'd been given a near impossible mission, he'd surpassed the sixth prince and ranked right below a battle-hardened general. The emperor realized now that Prince Jing had never been bad at hunting. The reason he'd never joined the hunting festival in the previous years was most likely so he could conceal his skills. He wanted to praise him, but he felt some complicated emotions over all this, and he only lightly said, "You can sit." Prince Jing bowed and returned to Liu's side without any arrogance. Liu's lips were red and moist, and his gaze was charming. This couple, who had just recharged their batteries, still remembered the passionate kiss from before. They couldn't say anything in front of the emperor, though, so they just locked eyes for a moment before Prince Jing smiled and touched Liu's hand under their sleeves, intertwining their fingers. The emperor was sitting on the dragon's throne, and from above he could see Prince Jing and his consort's interactions. He found it both funny and cute. He turned to the sixth prince and said, "Tian Xiao, you did pretty well. Better than I expected." The emperor wasn't lying. The sixth prince's performance had been impressive, completely different from his previous showings. Unfortunately, though, he still couldn't beat Prince Jing. The sixth prince's strange attitude immediately vanished when the emperor addressed him. "I'm still a long way behind fifth royal brother," he said humbly. "I'll work harder in the future." The emperor nodded and told the sixth prince to sit down as well. Next to the sixth prince was his consort, who was pregnant and showing a little bit. She'd been suffering from morning sickness recently, so she was a little tired. When the sixth prince had arrived at the hunting grounds in the morning, he'd handed her off to consort Zhang and hadn't even looked back. Lady Liang wasn't feeling well and had been worried about her husband, so she looked even worse for wear. Consort Zhang wasn't the nurturing type. After she looked after her daughter-in-law for a bit, but Lady Liang was still unwell, Consort Zhang assumed that she was just playing it up because she was pregnant, so she didn't really want to pay any more attention to her. The sixth prince came back, exhausted and upset, only to see a pained expression on his wife's face. He didn't get angry, but he didn't offer her any words of comfort either, so her expression became even gloomier. Though they were seated practically physically close to each other, that seemed to be the only way that they were close. I kind of feel really bad for her. The emperor was a little annoyed by the sweet demonstrations of love between Prince Jing and his consort, but when he looked at the sixth prince and his consort, he felt uncomfortable instead. But the emperor didn't want to interfere with his son's family affairs, so he ordered his servants to bring in all the game from the hunting festival. The meat had been roasted by the imperial chef and cut into pieces, waiting on silver plates for the emperor to hand out as rewards. There was a trick to this. Usually, the festival's participants would offer their first catch to the emperor. If the choice was good, they could earn the emperor's favor, and the emperor would reward the cooked meat back to them. The general, who'd ranked just above Prince Jing, had presented a deer, and the sixth prince presented a hawk. Though the sixth prince hadn't beaten Prince Jing, the hawk still gave him bonus points when it was brought to the table. The emperor rewarded the general with roasted venison, and the sixth prince with roasted hawk, but he didn't reward Prince Jing with anything. Liu kept listening, but he didn't hear his husband's name. He wondered what Prince Jing was going to offer. Liu wanted to quickly ask him, but then he remembered that Prince Jing's first catch had been a rabbit, the manor's new pet. The rabbit had been reported to the emperor, and the emperor had asked him to handle it. Other people had deers and hawks, but his husband offered a live rabbit? Rabbits were so cute! Liu didn't think there was anything wrong with presenting a rabbit, but the emperor would definitely look down on it. That was why Prince Jing had been able to give his most significant catch to him and the children to become a pet, right? Fireworks burst in Liu's chest. Just for that, when head eunuch Luo brought over a whole roast chicken, Liu picked up a huge piece of meat with his chopsticks and put it in Prince Jing's bowl. Erbao, Sanbao, and Sibao picked up one roast chicken leg together. Liu didn't help them because he wanted to see how they would try to eat it. The children each only had a single small white tooth about the size of a grain of rice. They rubbed their singular tooth back and forth on the chicken leg for a long time without scraping off any meat at all. Meat! There was good food, but they couldn't eat it. The children were so agitated. Sorry, I don't know why my brain was like... The children were so agitated that they were about to start wailing their heads off. Liu took out a small silver knife he had prepared in advance and sliced off pieces of meat from the chicken leg, placing them on a plate. Liu had only sliced off half the meat when Prince Jing took the knife from him and started doing it himself. As expected from the tyrant male protagonist who could hunt successfully in the face of adversity, he sliced much faster than Liu did, and in a short while had a full plate of meat. The three children opened their mouths wide, waiting for Daddy to feed them. Prince Jing picked up a piece with his chopsticks and was about to feed one of them when Liu hurriedly said, "Wait!" Prince Jing paused for a moment. Blushing, Liu copied the children and opened his mouth wide too. Prince Jing immediately understood. He couldn't help but smile when he saw the adult and three children with blinking eyes and large mouths, like chicks waiting for food. Without any hesitation, he fed Liu the meat that was meant for the children. Liu ate the meat off the silver chopsticks and glanced at the three children proudly. "See, he likes me the best." Fish Father took away the fragrant meat. The children were about to cry. Liu was a little embarrassed. He hurriedly stuffed some meat into Airbao's mouth. The tears were still welling up in Airbao's eyes, but his fat, chubby cheeks started moving up and down rapidly. Sanbao and Sibao, seeing that Airbao could eat but they couldn't, became even sadder. Liu and Prince Jing had wanted to feed one each, but Airbao came to a strange conclusion after he ate the meat. Prince Jing gave Fish Daddy meat, and Fish Daddy gave him meat. Shouldn't he give some to Sanbao next? Airbao liked Sanbao, so he nodded as if he understood. He took out a piece of saliva-covered meat and stuffed it into Sanbao's mouth. When Sanbao in turn fed another piece of saliva-covered meat to Sibao, Liu realized that the children had misunderstood something. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but he was happy that the fish children were willing to share. The children's loving meat-based game of pass the parcel wasn't over yet. As Sibao ate, he thought of Dabao. He started yelling and pointing at him. Dabao was still sitting on the emperor's knees. When Sibao started wailing, the emperor noticed and waved him forward kindly. Wang Shi picked Sibao up and plopped him over. Sibao and Dabao met on the emperor's lap. Sibao kept shouting, "Ah!" and stuffed the remaining meat into Dabao's mouth. Understanding slowly dawned in Dabao's eyes, but his brothers had already fed everyone. Who was left for him to feed? Dabao's eyes lit up. At first, the emperor couldn't hold back his laughter as he watched, but then Dabao suddenly turned around and put the last bit of meat in the emperor's hand. Dabao patted his hand boldly. "Grandpa, eat!" After the emperor ascended to his position, he had given meat to countless others, but this was the first time someone had given meat to him. Though the meat had been passed around and was covered with different children's saliva, making it inedible, the emperor was quite moved by the children's thoughtfulness. Prince Jing's children were all good children. In a fit of happiness, the emperor gave them all a huge pot of roasted meat. They were surrounded by observant people, so as soon as the emperor showed that he liked Prince Jing's sons, these people all started to praise the little Gonzi as well. They had practically forgotten that the sixth prince was there too, but the sixth prince just sat there eating his dinner calmly. At night, Liu and Prince Jing stayed in the tent that the emperor had assigned to Prince Jing. Wang Shi and the four children slept in the next tent, only separated from Prince Jing and Liu by a curtain. The outdoors wasn't the place to talk, so Liu tried to avoid any confidential topics when he talked to Prince Jing here. They knew each other well, though, so sometimes they could think and understand one another with just a gaze. After they finished getting ready for bed, they met each other's eyes. They didn't know who started it. Their lips pressed together in a fight for dominance. Prince Jing picked Liu up and laid him down, letting him lean on his chest as he softly caressed his back. They both expected the sixth prince to make a move during the hunting festival, so Prince Jing had made preparations. But now, thanks to those preparations, they couldn't be intimate with each other yet. Liu lay drowsily on Prince Jing and fell asleep for a little while. Then, outside the tent, there was a small snapping sound. Someone yelled, "Assassin!" And Liu immediately opened his eyes, turned over, and got up. He and Prince Jing were still wearing their robes under the blanket. They had both been waiting for this moment. And that is the end of Book 3 of The Disabled Tyrant's Beloved Pet Fish. And so, this coming Thursday, so it's not that far, we will be starting Book 4. Book 3 complete, that's right. We'll start Book 4. Our final book. Yep, so that'll be Thursday. But what a way to end Book 3 with some suspense. But yeah, I had fun. All right, so I guess I'll see you on Thursday. Oh, you haven't read Book 4? Ooh. You're welcome. And I'm excited to read Book 4 with you, too. All right. Good night to everyone here, and good night to everyone who's whistling later. Good night.